for a little bit. So in this video, I'm going to cover all the software that you need and why do you need these different softwares to do your web design. Now, this is not going to be in-depth tutorials for these softwares. It's just going to be a little bit of intro. Later on in the course, we're going to have a little bit more in-depth videos about the software themselves. But now I want to make sure that you have what you need to at least get started. So there's basically three types of software that you're going to need when you're designing for the web. The first one is image editing software. The second one is vector editing software. The third one is screen design software. And maybe as a bonus, maybe an animation software. But we're not going to dive into animation right now. So let's talk about why these three different softwares. In this video, and my personal favorite, I'm using the Adobe suite. So I'll be using Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe XD. However, there are three different alternatives to these software depending on where you are. So in the description below, you can find alternatives to the software that I'm showing you. In any case, they all work the same. So as long as you figure out and you understand the core basic, which I'm going to cover right here, it doesn't really matter. You need to understand the principles, and then you can apply them in whatever software you choose to work with at the end of the day. So let's get started understanding the basic principle. Why do we need these type of things? What's the difference between image editing and vector editing? So if you don't really know what's the difference between vector and bitmap, which is images, I want to dive into really a quick example to show you. So I'm right here in Photoshop, and I have kind of a page that I started, and I want to just draw not in Illustrator. Let's jump into Photoshop, and alright, so let me draw just a little rectangle, okay, and you can see I have tools here and on the side, and I choose a rectangular, a black one, not a rectangular, sorry, circle, and I draw a black circle right here. And also let's choose the type tool, and let's write something here like hello world, and I can change the fonts that I have here. So let me choose some kind of a font, and gonna make this really big. Okay, so we have that. We have a weird text and we have a circle. Now, if I'm going to zoom in here really inside, you can start seeing that we have a grid of pixels right here. So as you may or may not know, every screen that we use, whether it's your mobile device or the screen on your desktop, the screen is basically comprised of little pixels, which is the dots of color that we're seeing. So right here, when we're really zooming in, we can actually see those rectangles, we can see those pixels. And to create the effect of a circle, because it's rectangular, we're faking it, right? So there are black rectangulars and grayer rectangulars. So when we're zoomed out, it looks like a nice circle. And also when we're zooming in on the type, you can see that basically that's how it works. Those are how the pixels are being drawn out. And we are, again, in an image editing software. We are in Photoshop right now. So all our designs and images that we're working with are going to be pixel based. However, if I'm jumping right now into Illustrator, which is a vector editing tool, I'm going to use the same tool. Look, the tools here looks just as very, very similar. I'm going to choose a circle, and then I'm going to choose some type, and I'm going to write hello world. Of course, you're about to see many typos in this video, so just don't bust my ass for that. If I'm going to zoom in right now, look what happens here in Illustrator. The lines are, no matter how I'm zooming in, the lines are still crisp and smooth, and the same is right for the type. Everything keeps getting smooth. It doesn't get pixelated, and we actually don't see any rectangular. The lines are still curved here. So why is that? What's the difference? So a vector is actually just a calculation between some points. So here in Illustrator, we can actually jump into a point mode, and you can see in this case that we basically have some points here. And the line that you see here is basically the trajectory of the line between those dots. And this line and these shapes are being calculated every time. So no matter what side we're looking at it, the computer will recalculate the trajectory between these lines. So when we're in Photoshop, basically the computer has to remember every pixel, what's the color of this pixel. So this is a black pixel, this is a gray pixel, and this is a white pixel, whereas in a vector shape, basically it just remembers that we have 4 points, and then depending on how big or small we want that those lines to be, it recalculates them. So that means that here we're not really limited on the size. Here we're going to try to really print this out or zoom in. Here, this is going to look what we call pixelated, and it's going to look bad, right? However, here we can keep zooming in and zooming in. So that's the core difference between a vector and a pixel. Now, when we're using images, such as images from a camera, let's say I'm using images, I have here an image of a dog, let's say. An image of a dog is always going to be a bitmap, right? Because this is not a calculation, this is just like a camera took a picture and remembered exactly in each pixel, as you can see, what's the color of this specific picture. So images are always bitmap, and when we want to edit them, we're going to have to use with an image editing software. So in this case, if we want to edit this image, we're probably going to do that within Photoshop. Now, I want to jump into an example of a website that I built a client a while ago, and here's just a page, but I want to show you kind of the different images and resources and assets that we have on this page. So on the top, you can see an image. So this is a bitmap. However, I wanted to change its color. I wanted to give it kind of a color overlay. So if that's something that you want to do for your website, you're probably going to have to do this within Photoshop. Again, you can also do this in a limited capacity in other software, but if you really want to talk about colors and affecting, the different colors of a bitmap, you're probably going to do that within Photoshop. Now, I'm not going to dive super in-depth into color editing right now, but I just want to show you, because we're working right now with the image of the dog, I can create all kinds of color overlay. Let me create here a layer and, color this in whatever, blue, for example. Now, Photoshop has all kinds of different, it's called blending mode, in order to change, to combine this blue rectangular and the image below. And that's how we can create all kinds of visual effects and edits to the image, and reach very, very specific types of visual effects. So if you want to edit how an image looks like, and it's probably something that you'll have to do, work with images on the website that you're going to design, you're going to have to use some image editing software. Now, when we scroll down here, we have a little two different images. So here we have kind of a visualization of the dashboard within a screen, and here we have some kind of a 3D chip hovering, and there's a shadow to it. So these images were also had to be created on an image editing software, because if you want to take, let me go here and if I have this image of a computer and then I want to change what's inside of it, which is basically what I did here in this case. So this was the original iMac image, and then I went ahead and add just the dashboard on top of it in this very specific perspective. I need to do that in an image editing software. However, if we keep scrolling here, we see that this page also has some kind of icons which are vector-based. So in this case, those icons are pretty much just lines that are just basic lines of shape, and there's no need for this to be an image, right? Because these are just lines in one color. So in this case, these icons, it's much easier if these icons are going to be vector, right? So you can draw something like this, give them a stroke in the color that you want to make sure that they are strokes, and you can design the icon that you want. Now, why is it better to do this within vector? First of all, we're not going to be limited. We can use them in big and small. Also, the image size, when we're going to export it, the image size is going to be smaller, because this is just a simple calculation. And even if the image is big, it's easier to load, and so the website is going to load faster. We're going to dive into exporting assets for the web in a later video, but this is something that you should keep in mind. So when you're drawing these types of simple icons, you probably want to do this within a vector editing software, which gives you a lot of capabilities, which we'll dive into later in the future. Now, the third part of it is to actually